All right, we're going to go ahead and get going. Thank you again all very, very much for coming tonight virtually to our Club Leader Development Series. And the theme was supposed to be tonight 4-H meeting ideas and resources. We're going to talk a little bit about those, but it's going to be a virtual or digital resource instead of maybe meeting in person. Like I said, we will have some time throughout the meeting tonight that I'll have time for questions, and if anybody has anything else to share, please do so. Before we get started, I would like to say I am not an expert at virtual meeting platforms. My staff and I have worked over the past week and a half to try and research as best we can some options that are available. We are only going to go over a few tonight. It's not going to be a full length. And obviously we want you guys to find stuff that's comfortable for you. We want you to be reaching out to your kids as best you can in a manner that you see fit and that works best for you. So that being said, I'm gonna go to my next slide, maybe, hopefully. There we go. All right. So tonight's agenda is going to be why this topic. We're going to talk about our virtual platform options. We're going to go over some virtual meeting etiquette and some meeting ideas that you might incorporate in a virtual setting. And then we will definitely have some time for questions at the end of the meeting as well. The picture that you see on the screen is me in the Incredibles outfit from a couple weeks ago when we did our fun enrollment push. I just thought everybody could use a good laugh because it's kind of an interesting time right now. So, why not be a superhero in this odd time that we're facing? And as a reminder, I like to start all of our meetings off with the mission of 4-H, which is to provide real-life educational opportunities that develop young people who will have a positive impact in their communities and the world. And right now, our community and our world looks a little different than what we're used to, but that doesn't stop our mission from changing. So we are going to do what we can and continue to live out the 4-H motto and making the best better, which is leading us to the next question, which is why this topic? So right now the world is going even more digital with everything going on. I have had several requests from leaders to share information about what it means to do a digital meeting and how that works. And then 4-H is still going to be a connection for youth. We may be in a digital time right now. We may be connecting with our youth in a different manner, but that doesn't mean we're not a connection. We want our kids to be involved. It just is going to look a little different now than it has in the past few months. So that's why I think we need to talk about the stuff tonight. So we're first going to go over our virtual video platforms. And again, this is not going to be an exhaustive list. We dug into 5 different outlets that we want to share with you. And you guys will, at the end of this, I'm going to send out, I'll put on our Facebook group. I'll also upload online. I have a nice little handout that includes like a chart that you can see with pros, cons, features, that sort of stuff. It's also going to include some etiquette that we're going to talk about later tonight, all in one PDF that you guys can share with your 4-Hers as you see fit, that you guys can use to however you would like as well. Okay, so the ones we're going to talk about tonight are going to be Zoom, WebEx, GoToMeeting, Skype, and Google Hangout. So again, there's a lot more out there, but those are the few that we're going to focus on tonight. In general, when I'm talking about the different platforms, all of them have an app you can download to a phone of some sort. All of them, to my knowledge, again, I'm not an expert, do need internet, and they all do provide some sort of video capabilities. Some are different than others. Most of them have some interactive features such as a chat box, messaging, survey type thing that it's included in the software program. And most can provide a link where members do not need to sign up necessarily to participate in the video. So For example, tonight we are on a WebEx. You did not have to own WebEx or be a part of WebEx to be able to access the video. So the first one we're going to talk about is Zoom. This has been in the media a lot lately because Zoom was, to my knowledge, one of the first platforms that came out and said, hey, we're going to extend pretty much a free upgrade to those in education, knowing that a lot of schools and everything was going online. So you've seen it a lot in the media. It is really easy to start. So that's a pro. Right now, another pro is it does have good benefits for those in education standpoint, so including Purdue Extension. It can host up to 100 participants for its free version. It does allow things for like recording video and screen sharing, which is a benefit. The con right now is unless you're tied to like an educational institute, it's only 40 minutes. Otherwise, it's unlimited. So since I'm tied to Purdue, it is unlimited for us to have like a meeting like this. I do use this with another group that is not connected to a school, and they have had, when it is getting close to 40 minutes, a little timer that pops up on their Zoom screen that says you have 5 minutes until your time is up, and then it kicks them out at 40 minutes. You can rejoin the meeting after that 40 minutes, but it will kick you out at 40 minutes if you're not connected to like that educational institute. And another con is the free version right now of Zoom has a somewhat complicated call-in process. Unless you pay to have the upgrade, there's a way to call in, but it's a lot harder than just having a phone number generated to send out with the invitation. And the website is on the screen. It's zoom.us. So the other thing I want to point out about Zoom is our extension office has paid for an upgrade where the call-in option is a lot easier. It's unlimited minutes. You can do a little bit more stuff with it, I guess, than just the basic Zoom. And on our office call today, we talked about resources for leaders and volunteers right now. And that is something that I can set up a meeting with your club, with your project, and make you the host. And then I could leave the meeting. So if you don't have a Zoom account right now, and you don't want to set one up, or you don't have the capability to set one up, we can set up a meeting for you, get the link, get everything ready to go. And then you would share that with your club members. We can set up a password for it. But I would have to start the meeting, and then I would just make you host, and then I would leave the meeting. And so you would still have access to like our upgraded account. Does that make sense? And I can answer more questions if people are interested in that later too. But so just know that as a 4-H volunteer, you have an upgraded account available to you. It's just through our office. And we're still working through all this. It's still very new to us as well. So the next one I'm going to talk about is WebEx. And I hear people coming on, so I'm going to pause for just a second. So welcome to those of you that are coming on. I am going to be putting everybody on mute as they log on. So thank you for joining us, but we will have a time for questions here in a minute. Okay, so the next one I'm going to talk about is WebEx, which is what we're using currently. So Purdue has a contract with WebEx where we can have a lot more benefits than they have, like an enterprise option. So everybody has access to WebEx, but it requires a Purdue login. The free version of WebEx is, we would say, fairly similar to Zoom currently. So right now, some pros of WebEx is you can share screens. They do have chat boxes, that sort of stuff. It's up to 100 people. Usually it's only 50, but because of everything going on, WebEx has also upgraded some of their free benefits. They do have a call-in option and unlimited time available right now. A con is that there's limited participants with the free version, generally speaking. And sometimes WebEx has greater connectivity issues than something like Zoom. The site for WebEx is webex.com. On the slides, what I have for you guys tonight, I have took a screenshot of each of the free versions that I could find like on their website, so you can see some of them, but if you're interested in learning any more, definitely go visit those websites as well. So WebEx is another option for you guys, and those, I would say, Zoom and WebEx are the two biggest ones right now that are available and out there and have probably the most feedback. GoToMeeting is the third one we're going to talk about, and that one is one that Fairboard actually has a paid subscription to, and so I will be participating in my first GoToMeeting in a couple minutes at 7 for the Fairboard meeting this month. Some pros of GoToMeeting is that they have a free 14-day trial and unlimited time limits. Some cons are that if you want a toll-free number for the kids to call into, or your members or whatever group you're using this for to call into, that's only available with an additional purchase, and there's no long-term free version available right now. So the cheapest one I think they have is what I took a screenshot of, and it's a professional version, and it's $12 a month. And that's for one person to be able to access GoToMeeting. And I believe they also have limits on how many people can join a video conference. Their website is gotomeeting.com, though, if you're interested in learning more on that. Right. Skype is the next one, and this one is something. Skype has been around for a while, and it's changed. It originally started like sort of like an instant messenger type software, and it allows for screen sharing. It does have unlimited time, but some cons with this one is it's limited participants, so it's actually, you can only have 25 people on a call. And the Skype.com, it's through Microsoft. So there's different ways you can download it on to a computer. I believe it also has a web version. This is better for smaller groups, and it's very similar to the next one, which is Google Hangout. Both Skype and Google Hangout I consider are more like chat-based. So we actually have Skype on our computers for work that we can do like instant messenger to different individuals in our network. But that is, I think, what Google Hangout and Skype are more well known for. Next, we've got Google Hangout, and the pros on this is it allows for things like instant messaging, texting. It does have video chat with unlimited time, but this has even more limited participants, and they have to have, I believe, a Google account to be able to participate. Google does have something called Google Hangout Meets, or Google Hangouts Meet, and that's part of their what they call G Suite, and it's an upgraded version of Google Hangout. So Google Hangout is sort of like the informal version, and Google Hangouts Meet is the business professional, where it would be more similar to Zoom or WebEx, where you can kind of control more of a webinar type feel. And that comes at a cost for participants if they're interested in getting the Google Hangouts Meet. Okay, so now I'm going to try. It's hard to balance all of this different technology going on my computer. So I'm going to open it up for questions, but let me figure out how to unmute everyone. So at this point, I'm trying to unmute. Does anyone have questions about the basics of the platforms? Giving time for questions. Sure, I have everybody unmute. Okay. again, I am not an expert by any means. I am going to now mute everybody again. I'm not an expert by any means, but this is what we tried to research and find the best options that we could for sharing with our volunteers. Like I said, right now, the only one that is an upgrade available to our leaders, our volunteers, is going to be that Zoom account that is set up through our office. That I would give you all permission, and then I would just leave the meeting. And that's something that our district is actually doing for us as educators. Purdue has bought an even higher upgraded version for the different districts in the area or in the state. And so if I want a meeting of, let's say, 150 people, I can call my district, have them set up a meeting, because our paid one is limited to 100 people. But I can call my district and have them set up a meeting. They would set it up, I would get on, and then they would get off the call, and I would have my call just like I would regularly. So next, we're going to talk about virtual meeting etiquette. And these are going to be some very, very basic guidelines. So in general, remember that if you're connecting with youth, this may be their first time using an online platform like this. For example, let's say they're used to Zoom and you guys decide to go with a WebEx or something else. It just might take a chance. It might take a few minutes to get them used to how it's going to work. You might need to remind them of a couple things when they get on, such as how to mute, how to ask questions, basic buttons if there's anything special that you're going to be doing that night. And this is new to all of us, so it's okay to not be perfect, and remind them of that too. It's okay to work through. You might need to build in some extra time just to make sure everybody's comfortable with the platform that you guys use. Don't be afraid to be creative, but always remember that we're the mission of 4-H. We obviously want you guys to try new things in this odd time that we're in. We're trying to do a couple different things. It's just virtual compared to in person. And just remember to keep that mission of 4-H in the forefront of your mind. And so, some do's of virtual technology. Make sure you test your technology. That means getting on, trying your microphone, doing a sound check. Be sure your camera and microphone work. So an idea might be to have your officers sign on a couple minutes early, do a test run with them, make sure that they can hear you, they can see you, they can, if you're sharing screens, make sure everybody knows how to share their screen. Mute your mic when you're not talking. That's a common courtesy etiquette for virtual meetings. Again, you might need to remind kids how to mute and unmute themselves, or there's options in a lot of these where you can automatically have people be muted when they enter the conversation. So again, up to you, up to your preference. Keep safety in mind. So the biggest thing right now, I think it came out maybe today or yesterday, Zoom has been having some issues with people hacking into their conference calls. So doing things like setting a password for the meeting and adding that just next step of safety is something that would be beneficial. It is not mandatory by any means, but it would be encouraged. Our junior leaders are going to be having a meeting next Thursday, and we're going to have a meeting where there's a password. So we'll just send out the meeting information and the password with that to just our junior leaders. We'll post things like there's a meeting on Facebook, but we won't post how to access that meeting for junior leaders on Facebook. So just keep safety in mind when we're having our meetings. Be flexible. Utilize call-in options if internet isn't the best, or maybe if it's slower for members, depending on what part of the county they're in. So a lot of these not only have the video option, but do have call-in options as well. And make sure you're setting a clear agenda, because virtual meetings, this is not our normal. This is not our normal. So making sure we have what we need to get out, what we need to get done, and sharing that with our youth is going to be really important. Things like screen sharing, so they can follow along. Just being able to help them know what's going to be covered that night is important. If people have to call in, maybe you send the agenda ahead of time, or make sure they have it available to them uh, shortly after the meeting so they can reflect on that. But just making sure you guys know what you need to get done in these meetings, because it's just going to be a different format than what we are used to. A couple more do's. Make sure people can hear you. So speak up, make sure your mic is working. Again, going back to that testing technology. Remember that you're on camera, so facial expressions can be seen, clothing choices can be seen, camera position is important. Um, so just remember you're always on screen. I can't tell you how many times in our office conference today I saw some not so happy looking faces. So just make sure you remember you're always on camera, and that's a really good lesson to remind our 4-Hers too, that they're on camera. And with everything going digital, some of these kids might be doing job interviews. This might be something to share with them as well. Encourage engagement. So doing things like using the chat boxes, or there's options in a lot of these for surveys. Tell us, what you did today, or which project do you think is going to win the Clover Craziness, this project or this project. Just engaging the youth somehow in the process of the meeting. And if you're along with that, if you're able, it works really well. I actually got to sit in the photography workshop last week. They did their first online session last week. And one of the leaders, as they were speaking, the other leader was in charge of the chat box. And so that the second leader would, if they were not talking, they would make sure they were focused on the chat box, answering any questions that came in. And then when it came time to switch, the other leader would get on the chat box and kind of make sure everything on the chat box was getting answered too. So those are just, again, a couple situations where that might be helpful. If that's not possible, that's okay too. You can do both. It makes it a little complicated. I'm trying to do both right now on my little tablet. It's a little nerve-wracking, but we can do it. We can do it. Next, some don'ts. So don't multitask while on the call. I will admit that I'm super guilty of this because, I have a 2.5-year-old at home. So sometimes I have visitors pop in, and I have to be very focused on what I'm doing. So multitasking for me is uh, sometimes natural, but on a conference call, it's best to try and not multitask so you can be focused on the meeting. Please don't eat while you're on camera. I know a lot of our meetings are during supper time, and I know a lot of Instagram people, are really into taking pictures of their food, but usually it's not with them putting it in their mouth. So if you're having your officers get involved, maybe just remind them to eat ahead of time. Obviously, we can't tell our members, don't eat. But maybe if you're speaking, just remember not to eat while you're speaking. Don't have a bad background. As you can see, this is where I'm not listening to my own advice. You can see in the pictures on the screen, and if you're seeing online, my background. Unfortunately, this is actually very neat of our office. But it's the spot in our house that we have set up for office calls like this. But my example on screen is kind of a chaotic background versus a, nice solid background with a nice little painting I did, a few years ago. So there's a very big difference. A big thing would be making sure that your background is appropriate for 4-H meetings, making sure that any art is okay and tasteful as well. Please don't make private meetings public. So, again, this really goes back to the safety aspect. Making sure we're protecting our kids and trying to do our best to keep people from hacking into any of our meetings. I'm not saying that is an issue, but just making sure we're being aware that we're not spreading out all over the place that this meeting is going on or this meeting is going on, and sharing all the links that have been shared with us. If it's supposed to be a specific meeting, such as tonight's meeting, or maybe it's a fair board meeting, or maybe it's a committee meeting, just making sure you're being aware of that safety aspect. Don't expect everything to be perfect. I'm, again, not an expert, and this is a very different time that we are in. I don't expect you to be perfect. I'm not perfect. What I expect is our volunteers and our staff to be supportive right now. And that leads into the next one. Don't be afraid to try new things. So try something different. A virtual meeting in and of itself is a different thing than what we're used to in 4-H. But it doesn't have to be perfect. This meeting I've said I don't know how many times, and I'll probably say it a lot more because I'm not perfect. But we are going to do what we can to get through this together. So some other resources, and as of multitasking, it's a good idea to also put your phone away where it's not going to buzz at you every 10 minutes or every 5 seconds, like mine. Some additional etiquette resources I have listed on the screen. Those of you joining online or via phone, I will share with you guys. We'll upload this as soon as I can online. We've got things from Zoom, we've got things from Slack, I've got a couple GoToMeeting things, just lots of different resources for you guys to check out. All right, so the next thing, I'm going to pause for questions right now. Trying to figure out, there's not a real easy way to unmute everyone that I can find on my stuff.
Yeah, there's a thing she can.
So I'm going to unmute everyone as much as I can. If you just I'm going to give 30 seconds if people have questions.
30 minutes.
The link, can you click on the link that I sent out that says go to meeting? When you click and when you click on that.
So I did too, but that was
Okay.
free. That was before I knew I was going to have this.
All right.
Well, here's the thing though, like, usually they just sign it and give it to you, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
So you can always add those
Got
bags.
lots of people talking.
So if you
Okay.
drop them now, get your next receipt, just say it was 11 bags, even though you add the 9 on.
I'm going to mute everybody again.
Yeah.
This is technology again, working through this.
Not that much. Plus last year, like, we put it all in there, but remember it.
There we go. Okay. All right. Next, we're going to talk about virtual meeting ideas. And this is just a couple ideas of how to maybe engage kids during a club meeting, a project meeting. One is going to be use that chat or survey option during the session. So maybe you ask a question and ask them to type in their answers in the chat box. Maybe you again do a survey of we've got our Clover craziness going on right now with the on our social media accounts. Maybe you say, which project do you think is going to win? Or if you have to vote on something, maybe instead of doing an aye or a nay, yay, maybe you have people click a button to do a part of that. There are also a lot of online resources that can tie into virtual connection platforms. So there's like games that you can share with kids, or different activities that you can create on a different website that you could share with the kids to keep them engaged that relates to your meeting. Make sure you allow time for a Q&A. Again, and maybe that's at the beginning and at the end. So maybe at the beginning, the Q&A is really making sure everybody's ready to go. Everybody understands what buttons they need to press. And maybe that time at the end is more recap. Do we have any questions about what we just talked about? Those types of Q&A. Demonstrations would be another one. This would be something where maybe you reach out to a couple 4-Hers ahead of time and say, hey, we're going to want you to do a demonstration. Work with them to make sure their computers are going to be able to record the video, their audio is going to work, and let them do a demonstration just like they would as a club, at a club. Maybe tell them, at their kitchen table, they'll do a food science demonstration. Maybe it's a livestock demonstration out in the barn. Again, working with them to make sure audio is going to work, sound is going to sound okay, You're going to actually be able to see what they're doing. That's another way to get kids engaged. Do screen sharing. So this goes into the next one, which is reports. If people have different reports, maybe encourage them to share their screen if they have something typed up, or if there's a fun, maybe your health and safety report has a really neat website that they would like to share with everyone, making sure it's appropriate, and they can share what that looks like on their screen. And then maybe do some fun options for kids that are going to be joining the meeting. So everybody wear a 4-H shirt, or everybody see who can have the best hat in their house, who can find the best hat, or who can make the best hat. The other day, I actually did a conference call with some other 4-H educators, and I happened to have just gotten done playing scientist with Otto, and so I had safety goggles on my head. And it made for a great conversation piece. One of the educators then popped on a pirate hat because, we're home, and why not make the meetings fun and enjoyable as well? So try and engage them somehow with encouraging them to do something as a group. There's been a lot of things going around from schools where people have been on Zoom meetings and they've made different signs, and each sign says something different, and it puts a saying, and then they take a screenshot of whatever the saying is that includes all of the pictures of the kids in the meeting. Another way to keep people engaged is to do some sort of social media engagement. If your club has a social media account, if your project has stuff they would like to share on social media, if they don't have a social media group or something, let us know. Send it to us. We'll put it on our page. This is great for clubs, projects. You can find stuff on our Facebook. You can find stuff on Indiana 4-H, on Purdue Extension, on other states' programs, local organizations. I know things like the zoo, Children's Museum, they're all still doing different interactive opportunities for kids to check into on social media. Maybe your club shares some of those. Just looking for options to engage your kids on social media. If they don't have social media, maybe you send out an email and say, hey, here's a couple things that we have found that we think you guys would enjoy. 4-H, Indiana 4-H is working on putting together a document. I need to see if it's out there available yet, but it's everything that Purdue has available, plus what other states are doing, maybe what other counties are doing, that we can share with our families and say, if you're interested in this, go check it out. I know Marion County has done a bedtime story time with 4-H educators, I think once a week. If there's things that people are doing out there, share them with your kids. Just try and engage them somehow in 4-H. This last screen that you guys are seeing is what you're going to get online. I will put it up on our website and we'll send it out as well. This is the handout that talks about the 5 different platforms we talked about tonight, as well as some virtual meeting etiquette and tips, and then just a couple reminders. So I will share that with you guys as well. And now I'm going to open it up. I am going to unmute everyone, and I want to just have some discussion with you all for different ideas that you might have. Give me just a second.
They want to
know when the orders are going to be effective or be
done to count.
done.
Trust me, that doesn't.
Again, sorry, trying to work through technology. So,
That's not doing anything.
I want to open it up. Does anybody have any other ideas they would like to share with the group, or have they used any other virtual platforms that you think would be beneficial for the other people on this call to be aware of?
Hey, Katie.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Rick. Kind of off the subject, if you will, or whatever, but I got to thinking about it for some reason. How are we handling YQCA?
That's a great question.
If I send you the link, Michaela, can you try to click on it?
I thought since we had leaders here, it might help.
Yep. So that's a great question. We're still working. I'm still waiting on a couple things. As of right now, YQCA is still required for our 4-Hers, especially if they're going to state fair. YQCA is offering a cheaper online version, a discounted version of the training for the online account. I was waiting for the commissioners meeting tomorrow to see what is said about counties offices reopening, and I'm waiting to hear from Purdue as to what that looks like when Purdue Extension can have face-to-face meetings again. Once those things are decided, we're going to kind of figure out some YQCA options.
Any chance you can do one of these type of meetings for YQCA?
Unfortunately, the YQCA board will not allow that.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
There's a
We
board.
asked. We asked. I know. Any other questions, discussion ideas, any other thoughts that you guys have had on ways we could engage kids, or, you know, that you've thought about having at your meetings, if you're going to do a virtual meeting?
I've actually called, or I'm in the process of calling all my kids by the old-fashioned telephone. It's taking a long time and I haven't gotten through, but they really seem to appreciate that one-on-one. It's very time consuming and I'm working from home, so it's a little more difficult, but they feel connected. Some people have suggested a virtual meeting. However, I have several kids that are not allowed to do this. I'm not sure why, but we're going to leave out a significant number if we do it. So I've got to kind of we've got to weigh what is best.
Right. And I would also add that I'm not saying that this is the way you have to connect with your kids by any means. I want you guys to be comfortable as leaders and volunteers to be able to do something like a virtual meeting if it's what you're interested in. I know other groups have talked about putting together like YouTube videos on stuff, and we're happy to put stuff up on our YouTube channel to share, so that it doesn't have to be like a personal YouTube channel that you share necessarily. We can put it up on Purdue Extension Hendricks County. So if there's and this would be especially be great for projects, if there's groups that would want to do something on a certain project and almost as like a workshop, do it virtually, and instead of having it live where they would see it on like Zoom or WebEx, recording it, doing what you need to, and then we can upload it to YouTube. But definitely not saying you have to do it this way. All right. I just have a couple more slides that I want to go over, and one is going to be resources for you as club leaders. So those of you joining us on the phone, be sure to check out the PowerPoint once it's uploaded. I've got the Zoom blog on there that's kind of like a Q&A, and they've got a lot of resources available. There is one that just came out about how to keep, it's called How to Keep Uninvited Guests Out of Your Zoom Event. So it talks about that safety aspect. There's resources on our club leader page, on our website, the Indiana 4-H page. If you are on Facebook, please check out the Hendricks County 4-H Leaders Facebook page, or group. That should say group. That's going to be just an additional support system for you as leaders. I'm trying to put on their discussion points, and it's a chance to just, I guess, informally ask questions, and I'm going to post some of these resources as well. So just hopefully another tool of support for you as leaders. Which actually leads me to my last question, is how during this time can I and my staff best support you as a leader and as a volunteer? Because again, this is not a normal time for us all. And so we want to know how and what we can do to help you. And
Is there any way, oh, I'm sorry, was somebody else? Is there any way that we could actually get some help on how to set up a Zoom meeting by phone call? Because I did set up a Facebook page, a private Facebook page, which I'm trying to engage kids in there. Again, I have several who are not allowed to do Facebook, so I'm missing quite a few. But I might be able to at least do something to get the kids together for the majority of it. I mean, so if we called in and said, I want to set up a Zoom meeting, can you walk me through it? Can we get that kind of support?
yes, yep,
Who do
absolutely.
we call? Do we call you? Do we call?
So you can call me right now, and that's a great question in general. If anybody is interested in having a Zoom meeting with our upgraded account, send me an email with the information, and what I'll do is I'll walk you through how to set it up. And if you don't have an upgraded account, it's just really tricky to do the phone call version in. It's possible. It would be easier to definitely have a like a one-on-one. I can walk you through step by step
Okay.
on what that looks like, how to find that number. But the upgraded account, it's a lot easier because it will send numbers with the invitation. So if you want us to set up a meeting for your club, just let me know the information and then I can share it with you. We'll create a password that your kids will have to log on. You can share it with the kids, and then what will happen is you and I would log in ahead of time, make sure everything works. I would give host responsibilities to you as a leader, and then I would sign off.
Okay.
So, yep, absolutely. All right. Other questions? If not, if you have other ideas, please let me know. I have one last sort of question. I wanted to put the mission of 4-H back up there. Again, to provide real life educational opportunities that develop young people who will have a positive impact in their communities and the world. Right now, I think our youth are craving interaction because they're obviously not getting it. I had a conference call with my junior leader officers the other day, and I asked them, like, what is it that you guys want? And they're like, we're just excited to see people right now. And they're like, we're, looking forward to, hopefully being able to be at the fair, and that's keeping us going, and knowing that we're still 4-Hers is important. So however we can support these kids right now, I know they have a lot on their plate, and their whole family is, I think, adjusting to this new normal. I want to be there, and I want to support them however we can. So if you have ideas, please share them with me. If you know 4-Hers that have said, hey, this would be a great thing to see our 4-H program do, let me know. That being said, I'm also very much balancing my work life. Balancing work and a 2.5-year-old and everything else all at the same time while at home is a little challenging, but I'm still here and I still want to help. So just keep that mission of 4-H alive, I guess. And even though it's a rough time, we're going to get through it.
There is something I need to ask you about books. We have several kids who did not get their books yet, and Purdue is not sending them. And I have kind of told them not to worry about it too much, not to stress out over this, that it will be okay. You learn something, that's all I really care about. But some of them are real rule followers and they want those books. Is there any way that we can get them books?
That's a really good question, Susie. So the commissioners are meeting tomorrow to talk about policy changes, because the staff, the county staff, we're supposed to find out tomorrow, like, if county buildings are opening again and whatnot. We've been waiting to send any information like that out to see what that looks like, what that announcement looks like, before we say anything, because we don't want to do face-to-face still, per Purdue policy. but we know people want their books. This is going to be a year, I think, of flexibility and change. And I think that's on council's radar a little bit too, with the books and stuff. Hopefully. I don't have a good answer right now. It's on my to-do list to figure out once the announcement comes out what the office is able to do and when, if we're able to reopen, what our options are. But it's a very good question. I just don't have a really great answer for it right now.
Okay.
Need to be offline.
Okay, so here's my contact information. If you don't have it, I meant to put my cell phone number in there as well. But I think most of you probably have my cell phone number. Feel free to reach out to me on my cell phone. And then I will open it up just so that the last couple minutes, if there are any other questions, now's the time to ask them. I will stop my recording so I have time to stop that.